Okay, so hello and good afternoon and good evening to everyone. My name is Olivia Williamson. I'm the Exhibition and Collections Coordinator here at the Channel Islands Maritime Museum.
Click on, got it.
We are so thankful to be able to display art from the Coast Guard art program for our 2022 commencement show, and so thankful to be able to listen to Karen today. Honestly, this show was so fun to curate, and I can't wait to hear a more in-depth and personal perspective about the program. So let me briefly introduce our speaker, Karen Lowe. So Karen has chaired the Coast Guard art program since 2001, traveling across the globe to document activities of the Coast Guard and to display her work. She's received both the Coast Guard Distinguished Public Service Award and the George Gary Award for Artistic Excellence. Both are extremely high honors. She has 30 paintings in the program right now. That's incredible. So we are really, truly lucky to have her here today. Just briefly, I'd like to ask that if you have questions during the presentation, you type them in the chat or keep them in your brain for after the presentation. That way we don't interrupt the flow. And so without further ado, please take it away, Karen. I'm going to mute.
Okay, am I audible? Okay, yes, I got the thumbs up from Olivia, so away we go. So thank you, Olivia, for that introduction, and thank you especially to the Channel Islands Maritime Museum for hosting a show on COGAP art. Any of you that are in the area or plan to get to the area, this show is in a gallery that will be up, I think, through March 25th of this year, so you have a good bit of time to make it out there. I've been out there years before, and as you can see by opening screen here, that it is a beautiful location on the water. So not to be missed, the location and the art and the museum. Thank you. So COGAP and the Coast Guard Art Program. I'd never heard of the name or the acronym until I joined the Salmagundi Club in 1999. This art club is the sponsor for the Coast Guard Art Program, and it was through a member, George Gray, who was also a combat artist, as well as a gentleman named Jim Ward from Coast Guard Community Relations. They created the program in 1981. So my presentation today will introduce you to the 11 missions of the Coast Guard as seen through art, featuring many of the paintings that are in this show, plus a few others from the collection to round out all 11 missions. As you know, also, this show of Coast Guard art exemplifies the fact it's a traveling show, it's working art. So we'll give you a few examples of that as well. Now, COGAP artists are all volunteers. We come from all over the country, Florida to Alaska, and many states in between. We are purely volunteers. We donate our time, talent, and a painting, and we are not compensated for any of this. It is literally a gift from the heart. It is art from the heart, as any volunteer work you would do, except in our case, we're using art as our method of appreciation for the Coast Guard. We are lucky to have access to Coast Guard Public Affairs imagery. That way we have a chance for source material that helps us depict many of the missions of the Coast Guard. Otherwise, I think our collection would be quite limited, considering they have 11 missions. It's a lot of territory to cover, and so we have a broader way of showcasing all the many things the Coast Guard does, frankly, for all of us. So as you view the paintings, think of this as seeing patriotism in art. Now, the Salmagundi Club, as I said, is our sponsor. It has been since the very beginning. You think about a sponsor, it's like, if you want to give a painting to the Coast Guard, you can't say, oh, I think I'll just ship something off to Washington. Doesn't quite work that way. So there's a process of which it goes through, and Salmagundi is basically the conveyor of the art and takes care of the program art for us. Is located in a beautiful brownstone in Lower Fifth Avenue. This is a 47 Fifth Avenue. It's a 40-foot wide brownstone, and it was built around, I think, 1852-53 by Irod and Sarah Hawley. It's a Hawley mansion. He was, among other things, president of the Pennsylvania Coal Company. So they built this, what was considered aristocratic expression of the Italianate style. And it is a very gorgeous building. Many of the original details are still intact in the building itself. It is a landmark building in Manhattan. Okay, we have three important dates to think about. 1790. This was the year that Alexander Hamilton created the Coast Guard. It wasn't originally called that, but that is the origination of it. And it is the oldest continuous seagoing service in our country. Some may say the Navy is older, but they took a break after the Revolutionary War, so they did not continue on. So the Coast Guard holds this distinction. In 1871, of course, it's 150 years ago, last year, but we still are celebrating that. 1871 was the year that Salmagundi Club was founded. It was originally called the Salmagundi Sketch Class. Then it became known as the Salmagundi Sketch Group. And they met on a regular basis at the sculptor Jonathan Scott Hartley's Broadway studio about every week on a Saturday. And then finally, over time, they became the Salmagundi Club. So that happened in 1871. We're still, since COVID and not having the full use of our facilities and gatherings, we're considering extending that little celebration into this year as well. It's a big milestone. 1981, that was the 40th anniversary of the founding of the Coast Guard Art Program. So we're sort of our 40th plus year right now, waiting for collection 2022 to take place this coming summer. Now, the program itself, as I mentioned earlier, was created by George Gray and Jim Ward. Prior to that, George was part of NACAL, which is the Navy Art, let's see, I got to get this right because NACAL's not, Navy Art Cooperation and Liaison. Just throws off the tongue, not as easy as COGAP. Anyway, the Navy did away with that program a couple years prior, and he just really still felt he wanted to do something for the military. He'd been a combat artist in Vietnam and just wanted to continue that volunteer work. So there's George, a nice little compilation of work. He was a fabulous muralist and pen and ink, superb, amazing work. But this isn't the first time that the Salmagundi Club was involved with, dare I say, a wartime effort. In 1918, the club had spearheaded a national effort to produce rangefinder paintings used in training military gunners in World War I. The club provided canvas and painting materials to produce these paintings. Distinctive date also in 1917, the artists bought the building. It's almost unheard of to think that, but the artists were very resourceful, selling paintings, decorative mugs, and they raised the funds to buy this building. By that time, the Hollies no longer owned it, they were deceased, and it belonged to William G. Park. I believe they bought it for like a cool $100,000. It's a very valuable property at this point in time in Manhattan, you can be sure. Now, when we have a show, this is the outside display case, and this was for the inaugural exhibition for Coast Guard Collection 2021. And what is done is we choose for the image the George Gray Award winner from the year prior. This is John Ward's image of his piece from 2020, which was called Rescue Near Galveston. Very striking imagery. The Coast Guard awarded Salmagundi Club their Distinguished Public Service Award. And this shows that how much they value the ongoing support and dedication that the leadership of Salmagundi and its membership have towards the Coast Guard Art Program. So let's go inside. Here is the entryway on our parlor floor. It's had beautiful renovation over time, especially during times of COVID. We had a lot of time to kind of brighten things up a bit. The parlor, every townhouse needs a parlor, and we've got a beautiful one. Look at the ceilings, it's gorgeous. But this is a club of living artists, and we use the space to do paintings. So this is the parlor in action with a figure drawing class. A few years ago, we did a complete gut renovation of our main gallery, right down to the studs. It was quite a project of fundraising to make this happen. And our leaders, our president, our chairman of the board, and a number of others all had great contacts to get funding for this beautiful space. And this is how it looks this past summer when the Coast Guard Art Program show was on display there. You see we have a beautiful ceiling and floors. It's our skylight gallery. And this is a particularly beautiful room as well. This is the library on the second floor. A number of photo shoots have been done here and movies. And it's beautiful. They've got classic books here. You can see across the top wall, you see my hand here, palettes, historic palettes of artists from the past. Smithsonian has even borrowed these palettes to do testings for the paint styles of various artists. Okay, so about the Coast Guard, what have we been called? How have they been named over the years? They've had more than one name. Sorry about that. August, as I said, Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton started calling it the Revenue Marine. By the 1860s, it became known as the U.S. Revenue Cutter Service. And then again in 1915, you have a merger and it's the U.S. Revenue Cutter Service with the Life Saving Service, and that formed what we now consider our modern Coast Guard. But there's more. The Lighthouse Service merged into the Coast Guard in 1939. And in 1967, we were transferred to the Department of Transportation. Many people would remember that because, you know, buoy tending, boat safety, that was all under the Department of Transportation with the Coast Guard. Sadly, after 2001 and we had 9/11 disaster in New York, there became a new need for Department of Homeland Security. And that's where the Coast Guard was transferred, and that's where they are today. So where does the art go? We have it at many locations. Starting off with some of my favorites, this is a Coast Guard headquarters in Washington, D.C. This particular wall is outside the officers' mess, so you have senior leadership that sees this, as well as distinguished visitors to the Coast Guard headquarters. So we're quite on display there, very visible and very much appreciated. In 2014, I was invited to the change of command and retirement for then Commandant Admiral Papp. Coast Guard art was on display at the reception. And as you can see, it was part of the program. At that same time, the Navy Memorial Foundation had what they called the Year of the Coast Guard from approximately April of 2014 through March of 2015. So I made a little side trip over there and got to see the display. Now, if you're wondering where this is, the best way I can describe it is where the Lone Sailor Memorial is. It's on the plaza, there's a statue, and below ground is where the museum is. So if you find that statue, you have found the museum. They had 10 paintings of the Coast Guard art program on view with many other images from Coast Guard. I'm standing on the left next to one of my paintings that was on view there. This is called Tender Care. And I bring this out because when this first came out on the internet, as soon as we have these shows, next thing you know, social media is distributing the imagery. And the mother of the person in this painting contacted me and she said, "That's my daughter. Where do I see the painting?" Well, after the show at Salmagundi had moved on, and as soon as I knew it was in Washington, I contacted her and said, "Well, it's there for a year." Wouldn't you know, in October of that year, 2014, there was a family wedding in the area, and a group of them, I think 8 or 10 people, made a trip to the museum to see this particular painting, and they sent photos of themselves standing by it. So it's amazing how the interaction you can have with the people, your subjects. As I said, is there a monetary reward to doing this? Absolutely not. But the emotional interaction, it's everything. I often tell artists, this is what it's about. You are honoring people that they're just going to quote their job, but we put them in the spotlight in a very special way, and it has a lot of meaning to them. It's a great morale booster, and it meant so much to me that they took the time to come see the work. Another place we were was in 2018. This is City Hall in New York, and New York at the time became a Coast Guard city. So we had art inside City Hall. As you can see on the left, it's a major painting there, and on the right, you get to see the beautiful rotunda. What a gorgeous building this is to have your art. Federal Hall National Memorial in Lower Manhattan is a building famous to many people. You may know it because it has the giant statue of George Washington on the steps that is diagonally across from the New York Stock Exchange. Frankly, many New Yorkers think this is an office building, but I think that every tourist knows what's here, and they come in droves to see the insides of this building. So you can see the columns behind me, how absolutely gorgeous. This was Italian marble that was brought over to create these cornices, these Corinthian capitals. So this is, we hang the show there, and on the left, as you see, is James Consort. He is a COGAP artist whose work you'll see in this particular presentation. The next gentleman over in the darker attire is Johan Badaju, one of our COGAP committee members. And to the right is Joe Goldman, also COGAP committee member. So it takes a lot of work to put the show together, and I'm grateful for those who help and volunteer their time to make this happen. This is a view of the balcony of the Federal Hall where work was. And overlooking the balcony, you see the lower, the first floor, the rotunda. And again, people all the time filtering in and out and around. And it was great exposure for the Coast Guard art program. We also take it to the streets. Now, these are reproductions. So, you know, granted here, these were originals. These are reproductions because weather being what weather is and art being what art is, they don't go together. So this was interesting. This is Memorial Day weekend in New York, and usually that and Labor Day weekend, we have what's called the Washington Square Outdoor Art Show. And this particular year, the coordinator for it, John Morehouse, who is with Salmagundi Club, gave COGAP a whole display rack for our art. So people come by and they're looking at it. And on one occasion, I'm going to rough out the age of a 4-year-old boy, and his father came by. And he's looking at the art. I hope you can see my hand circle this one. The gentleman on the lower row in orange, bright orange vest. So he's looking at that and he says, why has he got a gun? And I look at his dad, and his dad's not saying anything. So I, pop in, I say, well, it's for protection from the bad guys. And I'm expecting the next question like why or something like that. But instead he goes on and asks about another painting and another one. By now, his dad sees that there are captions with each one to tell the story. So our art is of interest to people of all ages. It was really quite fascinating to watch the interaction of the public with our art. Then we went international. This is the Zeus Maritime Museum in Vlissingen, Netherlands. We had a show there in 2009. The Dutch and the New York City have a connection at 400 years anniversary of the Dutch discovery of Manhattan. So Leendert van der Poel, who's on this our group today, or our viewers, helped facilitate this. So standing out in front of this museum is Leendert right here. And this particular person there is Captain John Coster. John is the, I have his title here, hold on. He is the commanding officer in charge of the maritime inspection Coast Guard activities of Europe. That was in 2009. So he came as our special guest speaker. It's a very contemporary museum, but it's right on the water in the Zeeland region. Beautiful place. And there we are inside. That is Wilbert Weber behind me. He is the museum director. And that is Leendert van der Poel on the right. Leendert has both Dutch and American citizenship. And as I said, he was the coordinator, facilitator, making this happen for us. So we had a great show there of COGAP art in the Netherlands. Beautiful museum. So how do we get the art? Aside from the fact that artists donate it, how is it chosen? So we have an excellence committee, and here's the criteria. So first of all, we have very lucky to have Coast Guard Sector New York loan us a couple of their senior officers to view the selections for accuracy. Are we depicting the missions, the Coast Guard correctly? Because this is like an educational tour to the public. We want to be sure they are represented in the correct way and in the best light. Second, we have Coast Guard Community Relations Headquarters representative, and in a lot of cases, Marianne Bader, who's on this call as well. Is it a current mission? Someone brought up earlier about, or I think I mentioned about lighthouses. The Coast Guard no longer maintains lighthouses. As much as artists love to paint them, there is no need for them in the collection. So they aren't part of the mission. And then an artist member of the Salmagundi board for quality. Is it a good painting? We want the art to be a rich expression and a great tribute to the Coast Guard. And we want to do our best to show off their best. So that's a criteria. And 11 missions presented in art. And this is how I feel about it. We immortalize in our paintings and drawings those who courageously serve our country in the United States Coast Guard. I think they do so much for us. So here's our art on behalf of them. First one, defense readiness. So this one you may be familiar with. I believe this was the image that the museum used as their showcase for this particular show. This is by Tyson Snow from Salem, Utah. It's called Emergency Drill Aboard the Juniper, and it is an oil, and it was a George Gray Award winner that particular year. We have Alan Royale. This one, he's from Santan Valley, Arizona. This is called Shuttle Launch Security. It's an acrylic. So it shows you also the various ways the Coast Guard interacts, and this is security around launches from Cape Canaveral, Cape Kennedy, various locations. They also patrol a lot of the Potomac, a lot of security reasons around Washington, D.C. So Coast Guard is often on the rivers, the waterways around major events. And this outstanding pencil and pen is by Richard Johnson. He's from Mount Airy, Maryland. Though I believe right now he might be spending time in England. It's called Up to the Elbow. So it shows, security readiness. You have to keep all the equipment in ready performing ability. So there is his work for us. Search and rescue. I think that's a familiar one for a lot of people. They hear that in the news all the time about some tragedy at sea, or even hiker lost on a cliff. So the Coast Guard is there to pluck everybody out of danger. This is Suzanne Corboletta from Glen Head, New York, and this is called My Hero, and it's an oil. This one by Kirk Larson of Hicksville, New York, is called Rescue of the Michael and Kristen. It's an oil. So you think about when a ship is out there, and this, I believe, is a fishing vessel. They're out in turbulent waters and they're taking in water. The Coast Guard, to rescue them, has to go out in those same conditions, and it gives you a sense of what it's like to be actually on these ships in this kind of water. I think Kirk really got that for us. And this is by MK1 Jason Newman. He's in Kodiak, Alaska. He's a machinery technician, petty officer, first class. This is called Coast Guard Swimmer in Oil. He is active duty, so he takes his time to actually create for us, and he's really on the spot of all the action happening in his own area, so he is always really relevant. Ports, waterways, and coastal security. This is by Jim Stagner from Johnson City, Tennessee. It's called High Speed Maneuver. It's a watercolor. What I think particularly interesting about this one, it is in the show in the museum. This is a boat crew from Coast Guard Station, Channel Islands Harbor. So right down the waterway from the museum is this particular Coast Guard station, and they are represented in our collection. I think that's just a great tribute. This one's by Dick Kramer, and he's from Mountain Lake, Leesburg, Virginia. It's called Squeeze, and it's a pencil, and I think it speaks for itself. Quite a talent. Migrant interdiction. We hear this come up in the news a lot. This is by Hugh O'Connor, and he's from St. Clair Shores, Michigan, called 30 Miles from Punta Gorda, Cuba. You see what happens so often in these situations. First, it almost becomes a rescue because you have these overloaded boats and they're on the verge of sinking. And then the Coast Guard is called in as far as a migrant interdiction as well as a rescue. And this is one of my paintings. I call this Migrants at Sea. It's an oil. And when this was done, again, they hit the internet and people get to see them. And District 7 hadn't really had a lot of work done depicting their work. So they sent a public affairs person to our COGAP acceptance ceremony and to interview me. So she takes a picture of this, it gets put out in Coast Guard news. And we had no idea who the coastie was whose back was to the camera in this particular shot. Now you keep in mind, as again I said about these vessels, what is off to the side here, what's not in my painting, is a sail that's falling apart. You look at what the structure is, basically a few pieces of wood put together, lashed to oil drums. So they're really out there in seas in various perilous, barely floating craft. And then the Coast Guard has said, comes and does a rescue here. So who's the guy in the picture? We didn't know. So the image of my painting gets out on the news, and in a few days, I get a call from a gentleman named Sean Fearing. So I want to read you a bit about our correspondence, because again, it's quite amazing when you have a chance to interact with your painting subject. So responding to our conversation about him being the crew member in my painting, Migrants at Sea. He says, "Thank you for everything you do to bring our mission to the public. More importantly, I'm able to show this to my kids who always wonder why I'm gone from them so much. And they just lit up with joy when seeing your painting." Then I asked John for permission to quote him. And he said, "You absolutely may use what I said. Your work has made my last 12 years of doing this job." Well, what can I say? It just makes me emotional still repeating those words he said, that, to him, it's just, quote, a job. Here he's saving lives. He's doing such important work. And I brought a greater understanding between him and his family, and I couldn't be happier about that. Another amazing topic is, of course, drug interdiction. Well, that's made the news a lot too. These semi-submersibles. This is by Tom Hedrick of Westtown, New York. It's called Valiant Effort, and just an amazing watercolor. Now, you have on the water, and you also have what I call eyes in the sky. So while these submersibles and these other go-fast are speeding along the water, you have the HITRUN, which is HITRUN actually is Helicopter Interdiction Tactical Squadron. That's what HITRUN stands for. And basically what they do, they're not out to shoot the captains of these ships. What they're doing is putting bullets across the bow to stop them, get them to, give up. And if that doesn't work and voice and visuals don't get to them, they do their best to shoot out the motors. So that's the combination of in the water, in the air. Hard to get away from the Coast Guard. Marine Environment Protection. I think I mentioned Leonard Vanderpool earlier, and this is his George Gray Award winner. And he is from Brooklyn, New York. This is called Partnership. It's a George Gray Award winner. And what this is, you have a Coast Guard, US Coast Guard ship on the left, and you have a Canadian vessel on the right. And what they're doing is they're working with oil skimming and protecting our environment. As we know, this happens all too often. Oil spills, there are special devices they use to remediate those situations. And we train and work with the Canadians to help the environment. As also another case with Bob Bryant's, he's from Gig Harbor, Washington, Entanglement Protection on Cure Atoll. This is an oil. So you see what happens when you dump junk in the water. We have fishing nets, we have trash that builds up, and this is all detrimental to our environment and to wildlife. So the Coast Guard is out there cleaning up after all this debris. Living marine resources. So all that cleanup helps the living marine resources. This is by Delboy Bach. He's from Mystic, Connecticut, and it's called Going Home. It's an acrylic. So this is where a turtle was trapped in the nets and is then released and back into the water, free to go his own way. This is Vacacia Anglin. She's from Kodiak, Alaska. And it's particularly important to point out that she happens to be the wife of someone you saw earlier in this presentation, the active duty coastie Jason Newman. I think it might be our only husband and wife team in our program, and they're both very active and give us great paintings. This is about a beached whale being returned to the water. And you can imagine quite a load that. I think it's a 750-pound female whale. Marine safety. This one is particularly interesting. This is by Kristen Hosbein of St. Joseph, Michigan. Safety First, it's an oil. This was in the 2021 collection. And what I particularly like about this one, of course, you see the coastie is wearing a mask. In the midst of COVID, it didn't matter. Safety first. Safety first, not only for the coastie and protecting gear, but also to make sure that people out on the water have their right protective gear, their life-saving devices. So the Coast Guard never let up on making sure marine safety was forefront. And this one by Louis Stephen Goodall. He is from Los Angeles, California. I'm hoping he has a chance to stop by the museum, Olivia. He's not too far from you. This is called Reflective Action. It's a watercolor, and it's an inspection of a personal watercraft. As an artist, I always find it interesting how others depict water. And of course, when you're doing paintings for the Coast Guard, water often turns up in the imagery. So it's interesting. You see the reflections underneath the boat, and it's just the shimmer of the water. It's just a really beautiful piece just to take in all that he has going on, spotlighting these two watercraft. And this one is by MST-38 Thomas Unger, also an active duty. He is a marine science technician from New Bern, North Carolina. It's called Fire Drill. And what they're doing is, now this is a commercial inspection, and they're trying to adjust the face mask on the person in the gear. So what's particularly interesting about Unger's work is the medium. This is coffee. And it's quite unusual. I often jokingly say, well, did he use espresso? Did he use dark roast? What level of coffee is he using here? So this was in, again, all the inaugural exhibitions go through Salmagundi first. So this was on view in our main gallery. And I stopped in the club one day, and there was an art teacher and his high school students there looking at our show. So I walked in just to, give a brief talk, say hello. And I walked over to this painting. Now the students are scattered around the gallery. I walk over to the painting and say, oh, by the way, this one's created in coffee. Boom, like a magnet. They all had to come over and see working in coffee. Such an untraditional way of doing that. But he has quite the skill in not just using an unusual medium, but of course, putting it to great use and great depiction here of our Coast Guard. Aids to navigation. Any boater knows all about that and how important that is on our waterways. This is by Pete Michels from Stevenson Ranch, California. It's called Buoy Scraper, and it's a watercolor. Now, to get another view of buoy scrapers, check out this one. This is by James Consor. He's from New York, and it's called Ready to Replace. It's an oil. So you get to really sense the size of this. Basically, from the red up, that's about what the boater would see in the water. But this is what's all below, plus the heavy chains that push it into the seabed. So it's quite an amazing feat to have a buoy tender pull one of these out of the water and service them on deck. We'll clean them up, repair them, paint them. And of course, this one is probably ready to go back in the water. This one's coming out for repairs. But it's quite an amazing bit of work for the coasties to do on a buoy tender. Now, here's another version of lane markers. This is by Kathleen Dennis from Palm Beach Shores, Florida. This is called Setting Markers. And this has been after a storm in the area. And of course, Florida gets many of those. And these are day markers that they are placing in the channels. Other law enforcement, well, what could that be? Well, there's security needed everywhere, and especially when you have fisheries, our environmental zones. So this is by Frank Gaffney of Mountain Lake Terrace, Washington. It's called HC-130H Hercules Pilot. And this was something recently in December of 2021, the Navy Secretary, this was a headline for a news article I saw, Navy Secretary sees climate change, illegal fishing as global maritime security challenges. So that's what the Coast Guard's on the lookout for as well. And this is what he said: linking climate change's impact on trade, fishing, energy, and employment with the economic environment, toil of illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, U.S. Navy Secretary Carlos del Toro says the world's, quote, blue economy has never been more important or more challenging. So our Coast Guard is on top of this, in the air, on the water. This one is by Dennis Boom. He's from Hillsboro, Oregon. It's by Dawn's Early Light helicopter preparing to go out and do their surveillance. And this one by Chuck Van Horn is he's from Glen Head, New York. This is on station. This is actually in San Juan, Puerto Rico. There's a fire on land, but the Coast Guard's there to provide port security around the waterways and a safety zone around shoreline fires such as this. Another beautiful water. Look, again, treatment of water is always fascinating to me. I hope you're finding this interesting too as we go along. Ice operations. This is by, well, when this was created in 2015, it was by Lieutenant Ken Sauerbrunn. He was with Coast Guard Sector New York. And this is one of their ships going up the Hudson to clear the ice, keep the waters flowing between New York and Albany, making sure the oil transports and commercial vessels get through. So this was taken around Poughkeepsie when they took a break. Now, the reason I have Lieutenant Commander in Friends is that he and I met up recently. I was in Kodiak, Alaska in July of 2021 with a group of industry partners of the Coast Guard, and we're on the Coast Guard cutter, the Alex Haley, and the in-dock, and the captain on the bridge is giving us a discussion. So standing opposite me is Lieutenant Commander, and he calls out my name, and I'm thinking, I'm not wearing an ID tag. How's this guy know me out of this group? Well, it turns out that he had come to Salmagundi Club for our inaugural exhibition of work when he had a painting in 2015, and he introduced himself. So that was just a great reconnection. So of course I said to him, so what are you painting for collection 2022? I'm in Kodiak soliciting art. So I believe he's on the Haley now, and perhaps with painting supplies. I'm hoping that we see something from him from 2022, because he certainly has the talent and access to great source. And this one by Tom Hedrick. And he's from, again, I've mentioned Westtown, New York. It's called Gnome Ice Landing. It's a watercolor. I brought this one up because of this about the helicopter. You look at the pads here. The helicopter is actually fitted with something like skis, specifically for snow landings. They have to be able to land without stirring up too much snow. You can imagine the blaze of the helicopter, how this is all interacting, what they could do and skid and whatever. So this is a very delicate, highly trained, highly skilled pilot making this landing on this ice with this special gear. Okay, so now we have the art. What do? We have a party. Every year we have what we call acceptance ceremony and gala reception for the Coast Guard's inaugural show. This goes back to 2021 when we had this in July. This is on the left is Captain Zeta Merchant. She is Coast Guard Sector New York's captain and commander of the Port of New York and New Jersey. She was our MC. The gentleman in the center is Frank Russo, president of the New York Council of the Navy League. They are a big supporter of our COGAP program, and they generously fund our reception, so it is quite a festive gala event. And we usually have senior leadership from Washington. In this case, it was Rear Admiral Joe Raymond, and they come to receive the art on behalf of the Coast Guard. We are very proud that we get such distinguished visitors to our programs. It again shows the appreciation the Coast Guard has for all we do in our art for them. And we get quite a crowd. A couple years ago, in 2019, we were really honored to have Admiral Carl Schultz, Commandant of the Coast Guard. This was certainly a bucket list item for me. In the years I joined the Coast Guard Art Program in 1999, and this was the first time in my years the Commandant had come to our acceptance ceremony. And it's not because they don't want to, it's frankly, they're pretty busy people. So the fact he had time on his schedule to make it to New York was just so gratifying. And he was very welcoming to all of us, appreciative of our art. And again, it shows the value that the Coast Guard themselves put on the art that we as artists donate. Marianne Bader. Hi there, Marianne. So Olivia knows Marianne mainly through conversation and emails. She is the, I call her every artist's best friend. She helps connect us with imagery. On the chance there is an opportunity for deployment, she's the one making the connections with artists and stations. And of course, she does get the art out there to various museums around the country. And as you know, to the Channel Islands Maritime Museum. So thank you, Marianne, for a tremendous amount of work you do for all of us. You've heard me mention the George Gray Award in a couple of the paintings you've seen already. And George Gray, as I also mentioned, was one of the co-founders of the program. So it's quite, I guess you call it our Best in Show Award. And every year when we have the inaugural reception and acceptance ceremony, there's a juror of 3 people. It includes the senior Coast Guard officer in attendance. This year it was Admiral Raymond. And then we have a club juror, in this case it was Nicholas Dawes, our club's chairman of the board, and a third outside juror, in this case, Alistair Nichol. By some chance, Nicholas Dawes and Alistair Nichol look familiar to you. You may have seen them on the Antiques Roadshow. They are experts in their fields there. And of course, they were great experts to have with Admiral Raymond in juring the art for our program. And the winner is Frank Gaffney's award, Fast Rope Insertion Demonstration. So the reward, he was not able to make the event. So we have this photo op of Admiral Raymond and our club president, Jacob Collins, presenting the award. Now, Frank did write a message about how he felt about this award. So I'd like to take a moment to read what an artist feels about receiving this prestigious honor. As a boater for over 30 years, I've been aware of the role that the U.S. Coast Guard has played in preventing and providing security to the environment and to boaters and to our country. But this is only a part of their story. As a Coast Guard artist, I was sent on 2 deployments, was able to observe and document other aspects of their missions during both humanitarian and maintenance operations. Highlighting the skills and commitment of Coast Guard servicemen and women is of supreme importance to me in planning my paintings. Research and composition can take more time than the actual painting and is well worth it. Being joined into the Coast Guard art program is an honor, a special achievement that fills me with pride in the knowledge that I've achieved my goals. Receiving the George Gray Award for Artistic Excellence is an even greater honor and is one of the more outstanding achievements of my career. And we thank you, Frank, for taking the time to paint for the Coast Guard. Also given out at our acceptance ceremonies are public service awards. Every artist, whether they're present or not, who has had a painting accepted into that year's collection receives public service award, and it is this commendation here and a painting, a photo of their painting. This is Chrissy Murphy, and that is her painting from 2022. It's on the walls somewhere around her. This was a group of artists that were able to make it to our reception and our acceptance ceremony. Of course, Captain Merchant on the right, Rear Admiral Raymond back here, and our president, Jacob Collins, and various artists who were there. The art takes a lot of time to install, as I know Olivia knows as well, and anybody who's ever put up an art show, it takes many hands. And so the bottom photo is Hanging Day, our crew of volunteers, of COGAP members, and a couple other volunteers who lend a hand. And the top is the evening of the acceptance ceremony. We clean up pretty good. And we gave Admiral Raymond a memento from the evening of a book of watercolors. So when I joined the Coast Guard art program, my first painting was this one. It was called While on Polar Patrol, and it was of the Polar Sea and the Antarctic. This is actually an oil pastel. I had the opportunity when I first joined the Coast Guard art program to be in Seattle, and through Coast Guard Community Relations set up a visit to the Polar Star, which was in port in Seattle for repairs. And I'll tell you, it was a massive icebreaker. There's a great distance between these figures and this ship back here, but I'll tell you, it's quite an impressive ship. So I wanted to create my very first painting for the Coast Guard art program, kind of honoring that visit to the Polar Star. Without a doubt, my most amazing opportunity was a deployment to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba in May of 2002. I was there for 5 days, documenting the work of Port Security Unit 305 from Fort Eustis, Virginia. They were particularly significant to me because after 9/11, they came to New York to augment our own Coast Guard units here to add additional security. And this is a unit mostly made up of firefighters and police officers. So they came from New York, spent time here, and then they deployed to Gitmo to add to port security there. So this one I called Gitmo Morning. It's a pastel. And once the paintings made the internet, next thing you know, I'm hearing from people that I had met down there, and Captain Robert Grabb's family got in touch, family from the museum down there, the old lighthouse. So it really is, again, a great way that artists get to interact with their subjects. The art goes out, and next thing you know, we end up with some unexpected contacts. It's very rewarding. The next opportunity was just a couple of years ago in 2019 in December. I went down to the Maritime Law Enforcement Academy in Charleston, South Carolina. And again, like we saw with Landry's painting of Coast Guard ship with a Canadian, this also was joint training with the Coast Guard and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, as well as the Ontario Provincial Police. We share a watery border, and it depends on which side of that water you're on, whose law enforcement rules you have to abide by. So the Coast Guard and the Canadians trained together. And the one on the left, I call it boarding call. That's with the Ontario Provincial Police. The center one is arrested. It's Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Again, these are all mock things. These are like sites on the Maritime Law Enforcement Academy's grounds where they have actual vessels there they can step on. They have people that are there to play act with them about boardings. And then the far right one's called Take It to the Mat. And that is so that Coasties can train. This case was training and protecting weapon and self. So they train together, they learn how to go back to their own units and then train people there as well. And then the following year, I gave prints, since the originals remain in the collection of the Coast Guard. I had reproductions made and sent back down to MALEA, and these are outside Captain Solomon's office on the second floor. So they got a really great location there to, I think, show off what they do. Now, my last piece here is I like to call the Coast Guard's 12th mission, Mission of Compassion. And that's the title of this piece that I did after the Coast Guard was in Haiti in 2011 following an earthquake. And if you remember this past year, 2021, Haiti had another one and they were back there again. So the Coast Guard's not all about work on the waters. They also have a humanitarian side that comes out. And I think this is, to me, like a quintessential way of depicting their mission of compassion. So I want to thank the Coast Guard artists who are part of the show and our ongoing contributors to the collection. We have additional show and event in addition to the one at the Maritime Museum in Channel Islands. There is one at the Upcountry Museum in Greenville. It's about military dogs. It's there through February of 2022. So because our art is about Coast Guard ships and crew in action, we pull them into the spotlight. And what you've seen through this, I hope, is patriotic volunteerism. And it's, as I said, it's art from the heart. So thank you for taking the time to get this deeper dive into COGAP with me and learn more about us and, of course, about your United States Coast Guard.
Thank you for such a beautiful and informative presentation. That was absolutely.
Oops. I lost you.
Oh no, am I back? Okay, there we
so.
go. No, I just wanted to say thank you for such an informative presentation. That was incredible. I love that you shared so many of our favorites that we selected for this show, and you truly expressed the emotional and educational impact that these pieces have. This is just absolutely excellent. I'm seeing lots of comments in the chat saying thank you and good job. So before we get to the questions, we have two questions from Wendy here in the chat. One is the club open to the public?
Yes, actually it is. We're open most days of the week, 7 days a week, except for holidays. Usually from about 1 to 6 every day. Our galleries are very spacious, so social distancing is easy. Masks are encouraged still, so we do have that consideration we have to keep in mind. But most of our events are free and open to the public. There are occasional lectures where there is a nominal, fee, but no, we encourage visitors. We encourage people to come in and see what we're about. It's a great building, and there's always some art show on view. Some of it is from our curators collection in like the hallways, in the parlor, the main gallery, and our Rockwell gallery in our lower level often have member shows. Sometimes we rent out the space to other outside organizations. American Watercolor Society comes to mind. So there's really some exciting shows to see there about 12 months out of the year, every day.
Yeah. Next question is also from Wendy. Is the coffee mixed in with the paint, or is it just straight coffee that this artist uses?
Well, he only lists coffee as his medium, so I'm thinking that's it. And as I jokingly say, maybe he has different degrees of intensity of coffee, or maybe he just waters it down. I'm not really sure how he does it, but yeah, I think it's just coffee.
That's so Wendy, interesting.
So Wendy, you don't need any special supplies. Go to it.
No, I've got plenty of coffee I can use. Thanks. I don't know what I'm going to produce, but anyway.
Freeform, try it.
So I don't see any other questions in the chat. So I guess at this point, people can unmute themselves and ask. Karen directly, unless you feel like putting a question in the chat, in which case.
Well,
Oh,
actually, I have one thought myself, because there's a
okay.
question I often ask other artists. I always used to say to them, so what's on your easel?
Mm.
So if I were to ask my own question of that of myself, I would say that right now I'm finishing up my entry for COGAP Collection 2022. I've been a little delayed in getting that all together, but it's on the easel and it's getting close.
Wow.
And something that was finished prior to that was something for a collector friend of mine. It is the Hamilton Burr Duel.
Oh,
So considering everything Hamilton did for the Coast Guard, I can't believe I have to kill him off, but that's what happened with the duel. So it was really interesting researching that. I actually went with him to Weehawken, to as near as you could get to the site of the duel, which frankly right now has houses built on it, but there is a lot of history right around there in commemorative spots. So very interesting. But the other thing I like to ask artists is, do they want to become a COGAP artist? And yes, you can be. It's an application process.
oh, okay.
It's free to join, but as you've heard, it is an expectation that you will donate a painting
That
to the
was my
Coast Guard.
question. Okay.
Someone has a question?
Well, that you answered my question about an artist submitting a painting to the organization. They have to be a member, I
Correct.
guess.
Right.
Okay, and can I guess, and they do well. They work in the, it's all painting. It's not sculpture or any other kind of medium.
Well, it's interesting. It used to be sculpture, but it got to be so difficult to store and transport sculpture that is no longer accepted, just because of the delicate nature of sculpture. And like I said, as you see through this talk, this is working art. This is traveling art. It doesn't, yes, there is a storage facility for the art when it's not on the move, but the idea is to get it out to the public.
Right.
This art has been shown in Congress and, various special events and museums, Coast Guard stations. So we have to make sure that it can stand transportation. So
Yeah.
it's paintings and drawings is what is accepted into the program. And it's exclusively about the Coast Guard. It is depicting their ships and crew in action, as representational as the artist skill can do.
Hmm.
I'm
Really
seeing
interesting.
I'm seeing another question from DCO Mark Stone. He is asking if the presentation is available to be sent to him. He says, as the CG Auxiliary Commodore for the area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, I have a few ideas.
Great. Well, Olivia and I are both think we're recording this, so
Yes.
we hope we're successful. One of us would be successful in getting this done, and then yes, we'll probably. I don't know. Olivia plans to do it. Do you upload it to YouTube? How do you?
Yes,
make use of it?
we have a YouTube channel that is
Right.
CIMM Digital. And you can find that through our website. So yes, it will definitely be up there.
Okay.
So what is your website? If I know a couple people that couldn't come today that would like to watch it. So what do I tell them?
So you can find us if you just Google Channel Islands Maritime Museum, which should be the
okay.
first link that pops up.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's how I was able to find it easy. But now I know the website if I aren't. Been there a few times.
We also have a comment from Chris, last name unknown at this point, saying that they are a fiber artist. So do you see COGAP accepting mixed media in the future potentially?
I think, well, again, you have to realize how realistic it has to be portrayed and how it can be displayed and transported. So I don't have a clear yes or no to that question, but I don't know that we've had people try to do things in fabric before, but didn't quite reach the quality and standards we'd expect for a show to depict the art, and depict the Coast Guard the way we prefer. I don't know this person's art, so it's hard for me to say, but I just know it's a tricky medium to come up to the level that we are expecting. I wouldn't discourage a person from at least sending, when you send an application, you're expected to send samples of your work. So there's an idea of the skill involved with the person that's applying. That's very important to us. We don't, you don't want to take somebody into the program whose art is not going to be readily accepted. For instance, an abstract artist, they may be great skilled in their technique, but if they're not, giving the Coast Guard their realistic point of view, then it's not helpful. So we do expect samples of work. Tom Hedrick is our vice chair of the committee, as well as our chairman for submissions, along with Marianne Bader. So every application is given a nice review and a thoughtful review and a thoughtful response. And if anybody wants the application, it is on the Coast Guard website. Again, you could put into Google Coast Guard Art Program, and you will find the site there. And there's a page about the Coast Guard, and it talks about how to apply to be an artist. So you can download an application right from the Coast Guard website. It's under, I think, community relations, community programs, art program.
Well, we very much look forward to seeing future catalogs from the program and maybe seeing some new artists, and certainly your work, Karen.
Thank you. Thank
Karen,
you again,
if I may.
Olivia.
Oh,
Hi, it's Mark Stone.
yes. Hello.
Mark, hi.
Karen,
How are
so I hope you remember that we met at the statue on re-unveiling.
I do.
And,
I absolutely do.
I told you that that if you invited me, I'd be here, and here I am. And I got to tell you, I am truly blown away by some of what I've seen today. And you don't really do it justice when we were talking in person compared to what I see here today. But you're a great ambassador of the program. I just wanted to thank you. And just watching this and speaking with you, and my mind never stops. I'm like a shark in the water. So I have some ideas that maybe we could help you out and the program itself.
Great. I hope you'll keep in mind the date of July 7th. I know you're often in the New York area, and that is the acceptance ceremony for collection 2022. Salmagundi Club, and we'll keep in touch. We'll make sure you know the dates and times on that.
Great. Thank you. I'll be there.
Oh, good.
I'm
Glad to have
very
you.
impressed. Very impressed.
Thank you. And Captain Urchin, by the way, will be our MC again this year. So we
Great.
have Coast Guard on board with us. We're proud of that.
Excellent.
So if that's all the questions, I guess I have to say another thank you, Karen. This was amazing. I am so happy we did this. I'm so happy with how it turned out. This was, again, a gorgeous presentation and so informative. And we really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
My pleasure, indeed. It's my favorite subject.
Thank
For both
you.
painting, and talking.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Karen.
Hopefully you'll come to California at some point again. We'll
I hope
try
so.
again.
I hope so, Wendy. Absolutely.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye all.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you so much.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Karen,
Calling
you're
everybody.
Bye, Karen.
fabulous.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Karen,
Olivia,
from
thank you too.
Israel,
Thank
we
you.
love you here. You're world famous. You are world famous. I want you to know that.
Esther from Israel.
Yes,
Esther Mullers from Israel, tuning in at what? Midnight.
exactly. But you're worth it. And I just want to add, whoever is on, no one that I know works harder, is in more passion. And this is not, while it might look very simple, she is a fully devoted, passionate artist. And she is my favorite artist, Kalo. So thank you. It was a phenomenal presentation.
Very kind of you, Esther. Thank you. She's my biggest fan.
Oh,
My unofficial PR agent. Here we go international,
That's right. Global. It's global here. The
That's great.
Coast Guard is famous. Thank you.
well,
Thank
thank
you.
you, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
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 Have a great day. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.